Sugar Bowl just wrapped up about 45 minutes ago. Notre Dame comes away with a 23-10 victory over the Georgia Bulldogs. It was an ugly game, ugly first half. Turnovers for Georgia were killer in the first half. Fumble inside the red zone, and then a fumble inside their own 20 right after Notre Dame kicked a field goal to go up 6-3. Notre Dame immediately pounces on it, and next play, touchdown. And then right after that, they talk about the middle 8. In this game, it was like the middle 1.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame put up 17 points in about 58 seconds of game time because they took the kickoff back to open the second half. Georgia made it, cut it to 20-10, but their offense without Carson Beck and the downfield threat, Gunnar Stockton played well. They just couldn't get a lot going in the offense. And, I think even with Beck, they probably would have struggled, but it was I'm going to say like an ugly masterclass. How about that? Ugly masterclass for Notre Dame.
Yeah, I mean, they won, how they basically won games all year, running the football, being methodical on offense, defense, winning the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, but especially on the defensive side, and making plays on special teams. And all 3 phases of the game, I mean, Notre Dame won the matchup. Notre Dame, like you said, wasn't pretty on offense, but I just think it got to the point to where at some point, like, there was no reason to try to really attack. And I mean, the best way for Georgia to get back into that game and to have a huge momentum swing would be for their defense to, like they did against Texas multiple times, for Jalen Walker to come off the edge and get a strip sack on Riley Leonard, just like Notre Dame did to Gunnar Stockton there at the end of the first half. That was the easiest way for Georgia to try to get back in that thing. And Notre Dame made sure they kept it with a quick passing game, safe passes as well, running the football.
It was pretty similar to when they got up by a couple scores against Indiana.
Yeah, it was. And Riley Leonard managed that game phenomenally. Like I know the term game manager gets like knocked for whatever reason. Coaches, I promise you, would love a quarterback that can truly manage the game really well. And Riley Leonard has done that back-to-back games, the Indiana game and this one, and he's made plays. And like we've talked about multiple times throughout the year, he's just a dog, man. Like, he's a tough, hard-nosed kid and runs his butt off. Not afraid of contact. And, man, at one point during that game, I mean, you texted, you're like, yeah, James Franklin just sitting back on the couch with an extra 48 hours of rest while these two teams are just beating the crap out of each other. And they were. There were some pads popping early in this game. And it continued. But man, just look, it's okay. You can be unbiased for a second. Like, how happy are you right now, bro, that your Irish are literally in the Final Four and they just took down Kirby Smart in Georgia?
Pretty happy. Pretty dang happy, man. It's I told you I've had a lot of highs as a Notre Dame fan, but there's also been a lot of lows.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of just gotten used to over the years. Like, if they lost this game, it was just going to kind of be another notch on the belt there. I mean, it was just kind of wasn't going to surprise anyone if Notre Dame lost the game. What was going to surprise people is if Notre Dame went in to the Sugar Dome and
Sugar Dome. I like that's
Sugar Dome. Yeah.
Honestly, the Sugar Dome sounds better.
Yeah, Super Dome. What was going to surprise people if they went in there and they went toe to toe with Georgia? And honestly, I texted you. They looked like they had. I mean, it was pretty even on the talent. They just. I mean, honestly, man, Marcus Freeman outcoached Kirby Smart, and Notre Dame executed much better. And that was a trend in a lot of the games in the quarterfinals versus, with the team. There probably is something to be said for teams playing last week, obviously with the wear and tear on their body, but getting that game speed. And a lot of those teams came out in the first quarter, in the first half, like Texas yesterday, just blitzing the team who had a bye until Arizona State game speed caught up to them a little bit. They kind of get in a little rhythm. So there maybe is something a little bit said for that bye week, but I never thought, props to Marcus Freeman, man. Like, what are we doing? We're sitting here 3.5 months ago after they're losing to Northern Illinois, or 4 months ago, losing to Northern Illinois, and I'm sitting here saying the team fooled everybody again after that win over A&M. And Marcus Freeman's got problems in games like that, and he just can't get it done. And I mean, props to him, props to the whole coaching staff, the whole team. That was a big win.
Yeah, it was. It's the biggest win for Notre Dame. I mean, I really can't remember when. You and I were talking about it before we started recording. I really can't remember when. That as far as the biggest win for Notre Dame. And like, what does this mean for Notre Dame? You and I talked about this. I called you a couple of days ago, and I made this kind of like statement about this game. I said, you just kind of made the point. If Georgia goes out and wins this game, most of the country would just look at this and be like, "Oh yeah, you know, that's what's supposed to happen." You know, Notre Dame loses a big game to Kirby Smart and to Georgia, and we just moved on from it and wouldn't have thought anything of it, type deal. But Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame wins this game. How much it could be a just huge like catapult for this Notre Dame football program going forward as far as recruiting. Like he's already recruiting really well.
Yeah, I think it shows that Marcus Freeman obviously is a much. I've been saying it for 3 years now. Much better recruiter than Brian Kelly was in Notre Dame, and I think it also shows that we've been saying it for a couple of years now, but and especially this year, this Georgia team was not a typical Georgia team they've been in the past 7 years. And again, the NIL and the portal and the parity it's created, and you could tell, like watching that game, that Notre Dame has caught up to the likes of Georgia, and they had caught up a couple of years ago, but they just couldn't get it done against Clemson in the playoffs in 2022 or whatever. So,
I mean, physically at the line of scrimmage, I mean Notre Dame was absolutely like this was like I overheard. I can't remember which analyst it was. It might have been Jordan Rogers that was talking about it on ESPN before the game. That, and I couldn't agree more. I mean, when Notre Dame played Alabama back in like whatever that was, 2012 national championship game. Brian Kelly left that game and was like, we got to get a lot better on the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
And Notre Dame has been that way for a while now. They've been ready to go up against the Kirby Smarts, or if Nick Saban were still coaching, the Nick Saban Alabama type teams. You're real physically imposing teams on the line of scrimmage that normally overwhelm teams at the line of scrimmage. Notre Dame has been able to handle that for a while now, and it definitely showed tonight. And what's even more impressive, dude, about Notre Dame, about this, you haven't made excuses about it. Marcus Freeman hasn't made excuses about it. I haven't heard really anybody from Notre Dame making excuses about it. All of the injuries, man, like I probably made more excuses for you about it for Notre Dame. They just guys keep dropping like flies. And it's just it really is just next man up.
And some of their better players too.
Oh yeah, we're not talking about like some of their best overall players. I mean,
even
Benjamin Morrison not even playing.
Even in this game, Jeremiah Love and Howard Cross both go down.
Yeah, that's literally two of their like 4 or 5 best players on their entire team. I saw Xavier Watts, get banged up in this game. And they don't use it as excuses. And what's more impressive about it is Notre Dame does not take on tons of transfers. Not even no way near as much as a lot of these other teams. So it tells me that obviously they're evaluating talent really, really well, and they're developing that talent really well.
Yeah.
And so
the transfers they do take in, Bo Collins from Clemson catches the touchdown pass in the second quarter. RJ Oben from Duke blitzes. They tore up that left tackle from Georgia all night.
Yeah, they did.
Forces the fumble before the Bo Collins touchdown. And then your boy from Fairhope, Alabama.
Yep.
From Duke, Riley Leonard.
Little hallmark town in South Alabama.
Yeah, and he's just like he's not going to put up 300 yards passing, right? He's going to get it any way he can. He's going to hurdle guys and land on his helmet on a 3rd down and 6, getting a first down. He's really, like, after the game, like Marcus Freeman just said, he's going to do any means possible to try to win the game.
Again, we don't have it in front of us. We're recording this pretty soon after that game. But I would love to go back and look when the last time, or if it's ever happened, that Kirby Smart Georgia team lost a game where a team had under 300 total yards.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know, did they even have 250 total yards, Notre Dame?
213.
Wow, 244. 244 total yards for Notre Dame.
Oh, for Notre Dame, 244, yeah.
Yeah, 244. And still won the game.
Yep.
That just tells you again how Notre Dame just physically was able to hold up against Georgia. Not only hold up, but again, in that fourth quarter, They're sitting there running the clock out. Just Georgia knows they're going to run the football. Notre Dame's just running over them.
I mean, it just was like a 6 or 7 minute drive there at the end of the game.
Yeah, it was. On the flip side of it, I just want to mention like Gunnar Stockton. He definitely represented himself well tonight. For that to be his first start in college football against that defense, to be under duress like he was, his offensive line gave him not much help at all. There was zero help from the running game. Notre Dame just completely shut down the running game for Georgia. I think they averaged like around 2 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they completely shut down the run game. And then he's got receivers that are just dropping balls again, just like they have all year long. So, and he still went like 20 for 32 for 200 something yards and a touchdown. He played really well. I think the future's bright with him. I think he's the type of quarterback that Kirby Smart really likes. So,
yeah, Georgia's not going anywhere.
No, they're not. They're not. They'll retool. They're going to. I promise you one thing. They're going to get some receivers. They're going to get some receivers in this offseason.
Yeah, they have to. And the crazy thing about this game was too the fact that I think if this game is played, this exact game right here is played 10 times, Notre Dame probably wins 8 of them. Like with the way they play.
And look, man, I'm gonna bring up another point. I don't mean to tell on you here, but I'm going to. You told me this on the phone here recently and said that you just didn't want to say it on the podcast because
didn't put it on the record.
You didn't want to put it on the record because you didn't want to have to eat your words. But number two, like just how people kind of view Notre Dame going into this game, like around the country, that if you were to come out and say what you said to me on the phone, and I didn't disagree, I told you, I was like, I honestly don't disagree with you. Mm-hmm. You said, I think Notre Dame's a better football team.
Yeah.
Like this year. Like I know that to some people that sounds crazy. Obviously it doesn't anymore after the game we just watched. But this year's Georgia team was just not the same Georgia team. That's not taking anything away from Notre Dame. Yep. They just weren't the same Georgia team that we've seen from these, not even a shell of the same Georgia team that we've seen from the previous years. They still had dudes on that defensive front like Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, and Brinson. Like, they still had dudes that could get after you up front. But the offensive line wasn't anywhere near as good. They didn't have a Ladd McConkey. They didn't have a Brock Bowers, who are both balling out in the NFL right now. They just didn't have those guys. They didn't have the running backs that they've usually had. And I mean, I don't disagree, man. Obviously now they proved it.
Yeah.
Like, I think I agree. If they play 10 times, Notre Dame wins that game more than Georgia does.
Mm-hmm.